Hello, everyone. It's been such a great day. It's such an honor to be able to present here, and it's such a great honor to be able to work with H2O. I have been so impressed, and my team is so excited. Actually, I think about 10 or 12 of my team members are here today. So, what I'm going to talk about today is based on my personal experience from my work in Dun Bradstreet, as well as much of my perspective has been colored by my work with our customers. So Dun Bradstreet is a business data and business analytics company. Today there were a lot of speakers from financial services. So we work with financial services a lot. We also work with telecom, information technology, retail, any of the verticals you can think about. Dun Bradstreet works with companies of all sizes. My team, the analytics team in particular, works with larger enterprises. So I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence adoption in enterprises, and based on my experience, it is going to be about large enterprises. So first, I want to do a very simple segmentation of all businesses. We could do first one cut. Companies that do data and analytics for a living. So companies for which it's their product, like Dun Bradstreet. And then there are companies that are incredibly sophisticated in the areas of data and analytics, but analytics is an enabler. That's not what they sell. They may be in financial services or telecom or information technology, but they utilize data analytics as an enabler to outcompete their competition. Back to the companies that do data and analytics for a living, I think there are two basic groups. The first group is companies like Dun Bradstreet, companies that have been doing data for a very, very long time. So we are experts in traditional data. Why are we adopting AI? And I'm speaking a little bit loosely, when I'm saying AI, most of the time I mean machine learning, though there are some snippets of deep learning in there as well. So we are doing data so that we could we are doing AI so that we could create new kinds of data. I call them analytics infused data. Then there's another group altogether. They are pure play analytics. They don't have traditional data of their own, and sometimes they're focused on services, sometimes they're focused on platform, hardware, software, and sometimes they're focused on alternative data. Our customers, as I said, in most cases, they are in the second group. They don't sell analytics for a living, but they're highly sophisticated in their use of analytics. So that's group 3 in my segmentation. Then there's this whole other group, group 4. I think it's impossible to find companies these days that are not interested in analytics. So the fourth group also has companies interested in analytics, but they really aren't yet using it as well. I have many of my friends who have joined different companies. They have been hired because everybody believes in the value of analytics, and they have been asked to do big data. But it's not very clear yet what exactly does that mean. So Dun Bradstreet obviously is in group 1. We mostly work with companies in group 3. And in the second group, companies that are platform focused, hardware focused, those are the companies we need to work with, and there's huge benefit for companies, data-rich companies, to work with platform-rich companies. Now let's think through the relevance of artificial intelligence for these different types of companies. What exactly is the value proposition of AI for these different types of companies? I'll talk about just two in the interest of time. So almost for everyone, speed is one of the primary value propositions. You could do things faster. If you use machine intelligence, you could do things a lot faster. But there has to be a second value proposition for the first three types of companies that I talked about, that is performance, because for these companies, faster is not enough, superior performance is a necessity. We talk about this term, we use this term these days. There is a democratization of analytics using machine learning, using AI. What does that actually mean? And this was touched upon a little bit in the morning as well. Does it mean that no one will need any training in data science and you will have machines, and by pointing and clicking at those machines, we'll be able to create solutions that are good enough? I think in some cases that's true. There are problems that can be solved that way. Or do we mean it is just creating a better environment for aspiring data scientists, trainee data scientists, so their learning is faster? They can reach a certain goal a lot easier. What about the third option? The third option is the one that I'm personally the most interested. What happens when experienced data scientists, really smart data scientists, get their hands on tools that companies like H2O produces? That's the place, I think, where the magic can happen. So I'm Dun Bradstreet. Companies who have data scientists teams that are 10 times larger than mine use, in some way, solutions built by my team. So for my team to succeed, it's really option 3. So it's really companies that are targeting the data scientists, whose audience is data scientists, and they are building things to help the data scientists build better solutions. That's where my interest lies. We heard from financial services company leaders today. Yeah, they're not selling their analytics, though many of them now have data monetization groups in different parts of the company, but they are trying to, analytics is a big tool in their hand. They are trying to outcompete others. So a point-and-click solution is not going to be attractive for them. They have this huge skill set within their companies: data scientists, predictive modelers, computer engineers, data engineers, whichever way you describe them. So that's where this third group is so interesting. What happens when we are able to combine artificial intelligence produced by companies that are really innovating in that space with the human intelligence created by companies that are really invested in that space? So how does this adoption happen? How does a company like Dun Bradstreet, 175-year-old company, we have established that in traditional data we are the best. How does the executives, Ash had a great idea, CEOs should be trained on, there should be some courses on training our CEOs on data science. It doesn't really happen today. So how does a company like Dun Bradstreet decide that this is where we want to go? And I don't think it's that different from how does a company like many of our customers decide there to go. My belief is the first place where these things will happen, and it's happening in my company, is the areas where it matters. So on this slide, I simply have a list of certain capabilities. These are all machine learning or analytics related capabilities: pattern recognition, text analytics, image analytics, adaptive learning. Utilizing those things we could build the solutions that are on the right-hand side of the page. Just the first one, risk identification. It matters to Dun & Bradstreet because that's our bread and butter. That's what we sell to many of our customers. So as soon as we are able to prove the value, and everything on that right-hand side belong to that class. So the task of me, or the task of my team of data scientists, is not that difficult when they're trying to convince the company that we should be adopting these advanced techniques, because we can show ROI from that, and in our case, that ROI directly translates into revenue. Here's one example. It's an early default model. We built it for a large telecom company. And in this case, we are comparing it against the most explainable models that are out there, scorecard models, like a layman could understand. If you belong to this category, if you have these characteristics, you get this many points. Comparing that with the machine learning model, and we got about 20 to 30% improvement, depending on which criteria you look at. And one thing to notice, these are real improvements in out-of-time validation. Using machine learning on the training sample or on the development sample, you can almost get to any level of lift, which doesn't matter. But these were true validation results. So when you do that, then the customer adopts it, and then Dun & Bradstreet understands why my team needs the right kind of platform, the right kind of tools, so that we could continue producing these. There's perhaps only one reason why a company like ours may or may not want to adopt machine learning. And there was already a lot of talk about it in the morning, so I won't spend a whole lot of time. It's the explainability. Agus was very passionate in describing in his world how that is the most important thing. I kind of wanted to bring up another viewpoint also, that there are areas though where it does not matter. So yes, in risk, I have both my risk analytics leader and sales and marketing analytics leader in the room today. For my risk analytics leader, she lives in that world, the world that Agus was describing. Regulators will have to accept the models. In our sales and marketing space, we are actually doing a lot of things. There is this trade-off between predictive lift and explainability often, and we could choose solutions where the predictive lift is higher. I will actually not go into the details of this slide, but I will do one shout out, which my risk analytics leader asked me to do. It's Patrick from H2O. I don't know where he's sitting in the room, but he presented in an earlier conference where some of my team members were present. And my team is, of course, very focused in that area, but we are very impressed, and we are very much eager to work with H2O on this explainability part. Yes, yes. And I also want to differentiate a little bit satisfying regulators versus building trust in that system. So without going into the detail, I think there are some subtle differences, especially when we are talking about adoption by companies. Everyone will have to have some sort of faith in it, so it will have to be explainable in some different ways as well, not just directed at regulators. Here's another example. As I said, we are an analytics company, but we are also a data company, an analytics-infused data. So here is a simple example of linkage data, legal relationships. Traditionally, we have been collecting this data forever. This data simply says which part of the company sits at the top, which ones are the subsidiaries, which ones are the branches. And there are very traditional and fairly expensive ways of collecting this data. Now using text analytics by drawing out brand names sometimes from company names, sometimes from domain name, we can add to the linkage. There are some numbers on the slide from less than 1,000 to many times higher number of linkages we could find using machine learning. Back to adoption, when we do this, it's easy. So now we can get more data by spending less money. Doing it is not necessarily easy, and again, it's the combination of artificial intelligence and human intelligence. There are certain things which are really easy for humans to understand. University of New York and New York University are the same. Everybody understands that. To get the machine to do that is harder. And when I give an example in English language, it doesn't go anywhere near the complexity of when we are actually talking about a global database and things are coming in multiple languages. What's the result of this? The result of this is there are areas in a company where adoption will always be easier. Initially, I did a segmentation of the companies, and of course, the 1, 2s, and 3s are analytically sophisticated, so there will be higher adoption than the last group, where I said that maybe the infrastructure doesn't exist, maybe the other support doesn't exist, but there's only an aspiration to do analytics more than anything else. But within that company, there will be areas. So in our case, the enablers are infrastructure, strategy. We need to create a brand name in this area. But areas where we are developing very quickly are the things that are revenue solutions or efficiency, cost reduction type things. So in our data world and in our analytics world, where it is focused on the products, adoption has been easier. Based on my experiences with my customers, it seems the same. Areas that are really important to them, that's where adoption is easier. What about the support functions? By support functions, I mean in the context of a company like Dun Bradstreet, I'm talking about human resources, I'm talking about legal, I'm talking about finance. There was a beautiful discussion, a beautiful presentation from PwC on the finance function. So for PwC, finance is core. For Dun Bradstreet, finance is a support function. It will take us longer to get there. Once these presentations are available, I'm going to send that presentation to our CFO. He should watch it. So in support functions like that, we have started working with machine learning. We have started offering help, and we are doing certain things. Those are the areas, and again, remembering those areas will be different for different companies. For PwC, finance is a core area, just the way analytics is for Dun Bradstreet. I feel it's the non-core areas, that's where probably there will be more adoption of complete pointing and clicking tools. I want to help our legal department have asked for our help to use some text analytics, some natural language processing to look at very complex contracts. We are trying to do that. We are trying to help them. But this is not an area where my team needs to be the best. This is not an area where my team needs to prove that we are better than any of our competition. This is not something, this is necessary. Dun Bradstreet needs to move with time, needs to use all modern methodologies. This is not something that will make or break our company the same way our analytics-infused data or scores will do. So here it's quite likely that we will be using the most user-friendly software, most user-friendly platform to get to quick results. I also wanted to differentiate a little bit between when I talk about human intelligence, is it analytic expertise I'm talking about? Data science expertise I'm talking about? Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. Sometimes it's about the domain expertise. If my team is going to help our customer experience team with some learning capabilities and add some efficiency, the first thing my team needs to do is to understand what the customer experience team really does, really getting to the core of it. So I think it's these two kinds of human intelligence, domain expertise and analytics expertise, combined with artificial intelligence is going to bring a lot of magic to us. Thank you.
Okay,